Your new favorite women's basketball pod has arrived. Join broadcasters, hoopers, and friends Meghan McKeown
and Zora Stephenson for Got Next, a weekly show dedicated to all things women's basketball.
We'll share our power rankings during the college season, get you up to speed on the biggest stories. Of course, we'll tell you who's got next. Think up-and-coming player or team, and you'll hear from players and coaches too.
Speaking of players, Zora played at Elon University.
And Meghan was a guard at Northwestern. Now we travel the country every week calling games, but this year we want to take you with us. I still have the confetti from Caitlin Clark's record-breaking game in my backpack.
Remember, it took us like 2 hours to get into the parking lot that game?
We almost missed the game. Clearly, this pod won't be all about ball.
Yeah, remember when you woke me up at 4 a.m. freaking out about a tornado in Columbus, Ohio?
We came downstairs in our pajamas and sat there for like an hour. That day solidified our friendship.
We've got stories for days, by the way.
If you can't tell, we love this game and we can't wait to share it with all of you. Got Next, weekly on the NBC Sports YouTube page or wherever you get your podcasts. Meghan's jamming. I'm smiling from ear to ear. Welcome in to Got Next, everyone. What started as us just going back and forth, chit-chatting like we always do, is not just an idea anymore. It's a reality with a logo and music. We are so excited. This is all fueled by our love of ball. We've been playing basketball as long as we can remember. Yeah. Are we still playing?
Some days.
Some days are better than others.
I retired to horse only.
And now we travel the country talking all about women's basketball. And with the rise of the game right now, we thought, what better time?
We are like the friends, everyone sits down, they're like, oh, let's, start a podcast over a couple glasses of wine. And then we actually were able to bring this to fruition. We're so excited that NBC Sports was like, yeah, let's do it, because women's basketball is at a peak right now. And it's so exciting that everybody else is finally realizing how good of a game and a product this is right now, coming off the WNBA season, going into college hoops. We are primed for another big year. Also, shout out to you for matching our set. How cool does this look? And Zora, I mean, she just looks like she came with the set.
If you can't tell what my favorite color is, I did like Northwestern.
I know. Well, listen, Wildcat, you don't have to convince me purple's a good color. Come on.
And we travel the country every single week, covering games. And so this year we're like, let's bring all of our new friends, that would be you all, with us as we break down things. Meghan is going to do power rankings. I'll contribute here and there. We'll share stories of our travels. We've got crazy stories. And we're going to talk to some awesome guests, coaches, players, analysts. And we're kicking everything off with a preview of 5 different conferences.
I'm so excited about this, by the way. And it's one of those things where we want everybody who is listening to this, watching this at home, depending on how you're getting your podcast, to feel like the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
Women's basketball, there's a lot of teams. There's so many incredible storylines this year. There's so much talent. We want to bring that all to you in a way that's easily digestible.
If you're new to the game, join us. And if you've loved it forever, you can join us as well. There's a little bit for everyone. So, Got Next, your new favorite weekly podcast, drop in every Tuesday. Let's do this, friends.
Let's do it, girl.
The SEC, home of the champions. Lately, past 3 seasons, the NCAA championship has gone through this conference. And Meghan and I are here to get you up to speed on what you need to know ahead of conference play, ahead of the basketball season. I mean, Dawn's Daycare, a.k.a. South Carolina, is where we begin, right?
It begins and ends with South Carolina. Absolutely. The reigning national champs. They haven't lost a game in a really long time, went undefeated last season, won a national championship. Camila Cardoso goes to the WNBA. Everybody else is back. It's absolutely insane to think that South Carolina has a chance realistically to easily run it back, no questions asked. This conference got a lot better, but you see a lot of the same faces right there in this video. Dawn Staley, one of the best coaches, not just in women's college basketball, in basketball in general. And with as good as the SEC is going to be this year, I heard a rumor on the street that South Carolina might be even better this year than they were last.
Perfect segue to bring in our guest. Before we do, I did want to give some background on the daycare reference there. That is what Dawn Staley has affectionately called her group from last season, and then they were like, are we still the daycare? And she said yes, because she had to take care of them with so many newbies and freshies and everything. But whatever they're doing in the South Carolina, it is working out. Okay, now it's flower time, okay? Because we've got to give the flowers to our next guest, one of the great pioneers of our game, Hall of Famer, national championship coach, and my personal favorite for a Peck Talk. I'm talking Carolyn Peck, joining us now to talk all things SEC. But you said, and I'll let you say it, where South Carolina is right now. Dawn Staley has said, in terms of practices, they're practicing better right now compared to this point last season. What's your thoughts?
If they're practicing better than they did last year after how they played last season, I think that this is the most dangerous team in the country. I mean, you've got a defender like Raven Johnson, a point guard in Tahina Paopao. Breezy Hall is back, Ashlyn Watkins, Sanaya Fagan, Chloe Kitts. I mean, you can go on, and these are players that got significant playing time. And then you add to that a great talent like Joyce Edwards. Come on. South Carolina is going to be that team to beat.
What do you think is going to be the DNA of this particular group? Do you think it takes on a similar identity as the national championship team a season ago, or it morphs into something new?
You know, Zora, after watching the WNBA finals, Minnesota and New York, the thing that I really believe is that toughness is a culture. It's not something that you can just turn up. And toughness has been the culture that Dawn Staley has established at South Carolina. They're going to defend. That's first and foremost. They're going to rebound the basketball. That is a non-negotiable. And then now she has freed up the offense. You know, South Carolina used to be get the ball inside and then the guards can get theirs. Now it's more free flowing because she has positionless basketball players. And when they can play free, shooters can shoot it when they're ready, that and then be willing to get it inside when the big girls are available. That balance is really tough to guard.
Carolyn, you brought up Joyce Edwards, McDonald's All-American, one of the best players in the country headed into college this season. She had a double-double in their exhibition game against Memphis. An unbelievable talent, but why does she fit so well in Dawn's system?
I think it's in her DNA to compete. I think that that's got to be the top of your resume before Dawn Staley is even looking to recruit you. You've got to be a competitor. And I think that's what you get. You got to have a great motor. And that's what Joyce Edwards has.
All this talk about South Carolina, and I can just see the folks in Baton Rouge getting fired up because they're saying, what about us? What does Kim Mulkey have up her sleeve this season?
Well, she's got Big Foe or Flau'jae Johnson.
Okay.
And yeah, she's had a busy offseason, but she's also put in the work. We had Michaela Williams out at the 3x3 training camp, and I think that was spectacular for her game to help her to develop the confidence of taking the shot and being a star on the floor. You've got Nisa Morrow, who will battle to probably or contend with some of the records that were set by Angel Reese. You've got Tamaya Smith is back, and you remember last year she was having a phenomenal season before she had that injury. Now she is back as well. Last year, Poa, and that's, let me tell you, talk about defense. Kim Mulkey is going to demand that, and you've got to defend in order to play for Mulkey. And then Del Rosario, big post player inside. I expect her to be more mature, better shape. I mean, she already had tremendous post skills, so LSU is going to be another team to contend with. Look, the SEC is going to be hot. Let's talk about all the talent in the SEC. When you look at, there are 7 McDonald's All-Americans that signed in the SEC, 4 Gatorade Players of the Year, and 10 have experience with their national team. So the SEC does not lack for fresh talent coming into the league.
I'm so glad you bring that up, too. And you talk about talent across the board in the SEC. Tennessee, first and foremost, has not missed an NCAA tournament since the NCAA tournament's inception in women's basketball in 1982, the only program to have that. In a fascinating offseason hire, for the first time, Tennessee goes outside the Pat Summitt coaching tree to bring in Kim Caldwell. What can we expect from the Volunteers, who we are so used to talking about as a top contender in the SEC and somebody who's always competing for an NCAA tournament berth?
I enjoyed watching Kim coach when she was at Marshall because of the system that she had. And they had like a hockey line substitution, 7 in 5 at a time. They're going to press you full court pressure, and then they're going to get it, go, and put it in the air and shoot it. Now, I'm interested to see how that translates into the SEC, because you've got to have the dominant bigs, and not just the post players, but guards as well, that are able to rebound the basketball. And just in talking about South Carolina and LSU, that's not going to be an easy job. No, nor is it when you go against a team like Texas. So it's going to be, I think, a transition process. I am trying to tamp down my expectations of Tennessee and Coach Campbell in her first year, because she needs a year to really beef up the roster. But the system, that if she can implement the system, demonstrate on how they're going to compete, then she'll be able to attract the players to come there.
Another coaching change in the conference, Coach, was Kenny Brooks, right? Coming from Virginia Tech in the ACC and now makes his debut with the Kentucky Wildcats. Are you going to give them some space? I feel like Georgia Amore, in where she's at as a veteran, doesn't have time for that. What are you thinking when it comes to the Wildcats?
Zora, you brought up one of my favorite players from last season in Georgia Amore. I mean, that little Australian can pull up. That step back is mean from the 3-point line. But it's not just Georgia Amore. He also brought Clara Strack with him. That is a player that's over 6'4". Also, Clara Silva, another 6'7" player. So Kenny Brooks understood if he was coming to the SEC, you better not just bring you a guard, but bring you a post game as well. He's going to be one of these coaches that plays inside out. He likes the size, but he has players who can also stretch the floor that play in the post. So I think that Kentucky, their first 5, I really think that's a strong lineup. What he can get from his reserves, I think, will determine how far Kentucky can go. But Kenny Brooks is a mastermind. I think that he has the basketball IQ to coach in the SEC, to go against the likes of Don Staley, Kim Mulkey, Vic Schaefer. I mean, there's a lot of talented coaches in the SEC. So I think Kenny Brooks is ready to get in the battle.
A perfect segue, bringing up Vic Schaefer, because you could just take the teams we've talked about and say the SEC is one of the best, if not the best conference in the country. But then you add in Oklahoma and Texas. OU didn't lose anybody from last season. They add Reagan Beers from Oregon State as well, who's a dominant player down low. And then you bring in, of course, Texas, Madison Booker, the Big 12 freshman and player of the year. What does adding these two teams do to the landscape of the SEC?
Now, having been a former post player, I'm going to say this, and I mean it with all my heart. I enjoy point guard play. And we're going to get 2 dynamic point guards coming into the SEC when you look at a Roy Harmon and Nevaeh Tot. Now, Tot may be small, but I'm going to tell you, she is a pistol. She is the daughter of Helen Darling, if you remember her from playing at Penn State. So those are 2 dynamic point guards that are coming into the league. Oklahoma is a team that likes to shoot the basketball. That's another thing that I love to watch. Put the ball in the air before you turn it over. And that's one of the things that Oklahoma is terrific with. And Vic Schaefer is no stranger at Texas to the SEC. We remember his stint at Mississippi State. And a lot of people are talking about Roy Harmon. Not many people are remembering Aaliyah Moore. She came back last year off the injury. She will be in better shape this year. She got great experience last year. And you put her with Madison Booker and Taylor Jones. Texas is another one of those teams. I cannot wait for the SEC conference play to get here, because we're going to have some great battles this season.
Meghan, ask Coach about the conference play and the makeup of the SEC and her thoughts on
I love
the
this,
schedule.
Coach. A lot of these conferences play 18 conference games. You have the SEC, who I think does it right. They play 16 conference games. Conference play starts January 2nd. Everybody just starts playing everybody. You turn the page over from the non-conference, and you don't have to flip back and forth. Is that a big advantage for the SEC?
Well, if you're inside the SEC, you have certain teams play other teams twice. And if those teams are loaded, that's unfair to the teams that play other teams that are not. So I don't know what the perfect mixture is, because back in the old day, back when I say the old days, back when I was in 95, 96, when I was at Tennessee, and one of the things that the SEC coaches really were frustrated with was that they beat each other up. It hurts what used to be the RPI because of the losses that you had. And so that's why the non-conference, they would schedule weaker opponents so that you could kind of build up your resume by the time you got to conference play. But when you take into consideration last year, a lot of conference teams that were in the Big Five or Big Six, they beefed up and they played some tougher out-of-conference competition in the pre-conference season. And so that really helped them to get in the tournament at the end. So what that does in the conference, I would like to just see it fairly based. Everybody do a home and away and maybe not play the non-conference. Because of how talented the SEC is this year. It hasn't always been the case. And I know you can't flip-flop from one year to see, kind of what the diet is. And then when it's not as strong. When it's as strong as it is right now, yeah, I want to see those rematches of teams that normally don't get to play a home and home.
Right, because you want to see those revenge games and how those rivalries start to erupt. Coach, we want to be respectful of your time. I mean, Coach is coming off the WNBA finals, and she's going in depth about the SEC. Talk about talent and staying locked in. Are there this show is called Got Next. So we always like to ask our guests, who's got next right now, whether it's a player or a team in the SEC that we need to be talking about?
Oh, got next. Well, we already talked about South Carolina. Coach Joe at Ole Miss has always got an ace up her sleeve. So I'm interested to see what Ole Miss is ready to pull out. Remember Zay Green that played at Tennessee? Then she transferred out. Well, she's back at Alabama. So to see how she works down there and being back in the SEC, that's going to be fun to watch.
Coach, we appreciate your time. I love the shout out to Ole Miss and Coach Yo. I love how she's doing things there. My goodness, Meghan has had to do predictions on various conferences. This is going to be tough for the SEC in terms of Player of the Year.
I mean,
Final Four teams potentially.
And to Coach's point, I want to see everybody play each other twice now. It's like you just want to give everybody a fair shake at it. And this conference is so deep. It's a good problem to have, but it's a great point. Coach, thank you so much for your time and your insight. It is just so valuable, and all you have done to grow women's basketball. And how cool is it to see where it is now?
Oh my gosh. Let me tell you something. Hats off to Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese for the new eyeballs that they have brought to women's basketball. But here's the thing. Those new eyeballs, they're not going away because future is so bright, because there is so much talent. Now that we've got them hooked, now we have given them a reason to stay.
Love that.
100%.
Retweet.
I think that was my Peck talk for the day, right? Come for certain players, but stay for the competition and stay for basketball year round, from the W right into NCAA. Coach, thank you so much again. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Just so
I just want to do bow down to the queen.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so after that, now I think your picks are still solid. She solidified.
Thank you.
No, she co-signed your thoughts.
Right? Again, South Carolina, it begins and ends with the Gamecocks. In terms of Final Four finals, I mean, look, I think that's legitimate. LSU, South Carolina, Texas. You could basically throw any of them in the hat, and I wouldn't be shocked. You can make an argument for any of them. Madison Booker as Player of the Year. I'm really excited about Madison Booker. She's got a unique game. She's got tremendous size at 6'1". She handles the ball at a high level. She can score anywhere on the floor. She has such a high IQ and a motor. Again, freshman of the year in the Big 12 last season, player of the year in the Big 12 last season. She's somebody who is really difficult to scout for because she can do so many things, and at her size, do you put a bigger player on her who maybe she can use her footwork to get by? Do you put a smaller guard on her who she can be big and shoot over? It's all over the place in terms of how you're going to try to stop Madison Booker, but she's been so dominant ever since she came into college basketball. Folks, she's going to be a sophomore this season for Texas. Going to be really excited to see Vic Schaefer also back in the SEC, a man who loves to play defense, by the way.
There's so much talent in this conference specifically. We hope that you feel up to speed, ready to go, got some information as you get start to watch it all. Thank you so much to Carolyn Peck and Meghan. Thank you
Oh my
as
gosh,
well.
thank you.
You're the best.